and settle our minds, and to set a proper motivation. I mentioned before that it's said in Tibetan Buddhism, especially, the three important times are the beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning, it's important to have a very special motivation, because it's kind of like the impetus. If you motivate that during this time, I'm going to be doing this for the welfare of sentient beings. That motivation pervades the whole time. And then you have another kind of motivation, which is instantaneous, which is at the moment. So in the middle, while you're doing the actual practice, not only the impetus, but you want to try to keep your mind with a proper motivation and to do the practice properly with concentration and, all of its various divisions and limbs, whatever it is. And then at the end of the action, it's important to dedicate the merits, so that we try to do those three things. Okay, so sit comfortably. Relax your body, relax your mind, and bring your attention, your mindfulness, to the breathing in front. And as you progress, you'll notice your mind can have a little more concentration, letting go of other thoughts. And follow the next inhalation up to the crown of your head, down to your heart chakra. Let your attention dwell around there, and watch your mind, the contents of your mind. First of all, the thoughts, as a means of recognizing the clear light nature of the mind within which those thoughts are arising or emerging, from which they are emerging. let your mind in one hand, on one side, relax, let go of any things that are bothering you, maybe bad dreams you had last night, or some problem today, or anticipation of something. Just let them go. Yet focus with squeezing the tension. It doesn't mean like squeezing your hand or squeezing hard, but focusing the mind to try to see the spaciousness, to envision the spaciousness between the thoughts. When I say see, it doesn't mean as though it were an object of eyesight, physical eye. Let go of the appearance of your body to your mind. That's just a mental image, depending on your body, but in your mental consciousness, just another thought. See how that's arising within the spaciousness of your mind. Let go of the self. That exercise is not in any way a realization of selflessness. It's just recognizing that the appearance of the self as the subject, the meditator, is just an appearance to the mind. Discard that, let go of that. And like the proverbial dakas and dakinis, dive into the spaciousness of your mind. And then note to yourself that what we have been experiencing or trying to experience is what's called the conventional clear light nature of the mind, our conventional Buddha nature, awareness of which shows that we can overcome, we can remove all of the discordant factors from the mind. They're not of the nature of the mind. And that we can develop within this spaciousness all of the good qualities that we have not yet generated, or we can enhance the ones that we do have a little experience of. And that this opportunity to recognize this as a resource that we can always go back to. This occasion is arisen because of having a life of leisure and endowment as a human being, that we worked perhaps very diligently in previous lives to create the karma for. And that can be used for very mundane or crass or contaminated purposes, or can be used for the great meanings of achieving liberation, enlightenment, for the welfare of others. I think that I'm going to, this evening, concentrate my mind and participate in the class in order to familiarize my mind better, to refamiliarize it, in some cases, with the stages of the path, the Lamrim meditations, especially as we've reached now the section on individuals of great scope, Mahayana, to be able to develop eventually bodhicitta, the right view of emptiness, having already a little understanding of renunciation. And I'm going to do so because my final goal is to achieve enlightenment. It might take a very long time. Or if we're fortunate and skillful, maybe even one lifetime through the practice of secret mantra, tantra. Because from that state of enlightenment, I can be like a great benefactor, great mother or father of all sentient beings, leading them through actual knowledge, omniscience, into the stages that lead from where they are now to whatever is necessary to achieve, to further their goal of escaping from cyclic existence, achieving enlightenment themselves. So I'm going to participate in the class tonight in order to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Okay, and then relax, bring your attention back to the present. I have to put some tape on these two pairs of glasses to tell which is the reading glasses and which are the computer glasses there. So, any questions? Did anyone notice that chiming? Was that a Mr. Frosty truck or an ambulance going by or a police car earlier? Something I heard someone's in an area. Michael, was that Mr. Frosty in front of your apartment? You missed the opportunity. You're muted. There you go. Okay, doesn't matter. Just joking. Okay. So we are in the section now on the person of great scope. We began either last time or the time before. And so we're in the section now. We talked about already developing great compassion with the verse, Nyamtak droa dikun dagima. All of these beings have been, I think the verse right before that, 89. Yeah, that all of these, generating compassion, the foundation of the Mahayana path, the outline says there. So we talked about that. That's essentially a verse that we can encompass the 7 points of cause and effect to develop bodhicitta. And then we talked also the next verse, 90. Whoever's got the computer there. There you go. Okay, so that's a sort of that bullet point there before verse 90, that's sort of like the general outline, generating bodhicitta by exchanging self and others. And we talked a little bit about what that meant. Exchanging doesn't mean that, like on these crime shows on TV, you take someone else's identity and something like that, but that you begin to diminish your cherishing or your care of yourself alone, your self-interest, and you begin to specialize in cherishing others, enhancing that. So this is actually should be, say, equalizing and exchanging self and others. I'm not sure where that outline came from. It just says exchanging oneself and others. So the special point there, we talked about Dugnal Tamos Samyang Bidoshing, not desiring even the slightest suffering, and Dela Namyang Chokshe Mebani. Dela here, de means bliss or happiness, not satisfied with whatever happiness we have. It doesn't mean like we're sort of like a spoiled prince or princess, Italian Italian boys, our mama's boys especially. George, you're not Italian, are you? No, you're French, okay. So I didn't mean to offend anyone. Maybe Diana's boys, I don't think they're so spoiled. They're more self-reliant, but not here. When it says not satisfied with the happiness we have, it's not like someone who's spoiled and always wants more. It's the very nature of being in cyclic existence that contaminated happiness never brings satisfaction. It's only reducing one suffering, exchanging it with another. Hot goes down, cold goes up, desire for sugar goes down, sugar saturation, sugar panic goes up or whatever. It's just the nature of cyclic existence. As I mentioned, Lama Zopa mentioned many times, it's the nature of cyclic existence. It's like a fire. So recognizing that we share this experience in cyclic existence. It's like we're a community. You don't have to think you're a Buddhist community or a evangelical community or Russians or Americans or Republicans or Democrats. We're all part of the community of cyclic existence. So we're all equal in those factors, but also further equalities. We all are equal in deserving to have ultimate happiness and so forth. There are other factors of equality that can go on, but this point itself is sufficient to start to develop the path of equalizing and exchanging self and others, equalizing yourself and with respect to others, that we have this commonality in cyclic existence. Then we talked, I think we just talked about this last time, contemplating the faults of self-cherishing. Shro rang ni chepa simpe chongne di midu dugnal kepe gyurtongne lelendela kongdu zungchete dagzen donchen jompa jingilob. So this is chronic disease of self-cherishing. Having seen it as the tongne in the second line, the last two syllables of the second line is having seen it, that self-cherishing, this chronic disease of self-cherishing, as a cause that gives rise to all undesired suffering. Actually, it also gives rise to desired suffering, right? But what's the suffering we desire from the point of view of Buddhism in this text? Philip, is there some suffering that we desire? Yeah.
Sure, there must be. The passion, aggression, ignorance. At some point, where we're grasping for those things and causing our own suffering.
Mm-hmm. Another way of, I think one way that I mentioned about it is that all of the contaminated happiness that we experience, being praised, being loved, being complimented, eating nice food, lying on a nice mattress, whatever, all of the samsaric happiness, making millions of dollars or beating out the opponents in your political campaign and so forth. All of those happinesses are actually the nature of suffering. And that's we talked about it before, that's a very important thing to understand. There's nothing in cyclic existence which is of the nature of happiness. All contaminated happiness is of the nature of suffering. So when we say midu dugnal, so undesired suffering, or it says unsought suffering. So we do seek some suffering. We seek contaminated happiness, but here the self-cherishing thought is the cause of all of this suffering. Having understood that, when it says having seen, doesn't mean again with the I. Various verbs here: having understood, having known, having seen. It means having, through the process of analysis and meditation, and through your own experience in everyday life, having seen that all of this arises from the self-cherishing thought. Grant me blessings to blame, begrudge, and to destroy the great demon of self-grasping. Here it says the monstrous demon of selfishness. So in all of the texts, there's a difference between the words at the beginning of the text, Rangni Chepar Zimba. Rangni Chepar or Rang Chenzen Gilo means self-cherishing thought. That's what's the immediate cause of engaging in inappropriate activities, creating negative karma and so forth. The Dagzin, in the last line there, the first two words, Dagzin means self-grasping. So that is a more fundamental problem. That is something which is acceding to the appearance of a self-identity, an innate self, to your consciousness. When I say, I shouldn't say because it's something you may not know or haven't experienced, to recognize that the self that we are acceding to or grasping to, what it means is that there is an appearance to the mind, very, very subtle, and you have to use a lot of meditative techniques and wisdom to recognize the way our self-identity is appearing to our mental consciousness, as though the subject, me. I don't mean in a gross sense, I am a Buddhist, I am a New Yorker, I am man, I am woman, or anything like this, but something more fundamental, just the sense of I-ness, I, capital I, not these eyes. So I had given one interpretation of this verse because it seems to be talking about both things. Self-cherishing thought. It says that having seen that all undesired suffering is caused by the self-cherishing thought, the first two lines. So having understood that, and develop, put the blame on that and its cause. What's the cause of self-cherishing thought? Self-grasping. Self-grasping is a type of ignorance which naturally has an appearance since beginningless time of some kind of self-identity, an innate appearance of a self, an appearance of an innate self, to which we don't disbelieve, we actually accede to that. We grasp to that as true. That's called self-grasping. That's the fundamental ignorance that even the Hinayana arhats have to eliminate to achieve their goal of nirvana or arhatship. That mind, that ignorance has left an imprint in our mind, of course, of itself, but also even when that self-grasping has been eliminated through wisdom, there can still be a smell of it, so to speak, which is called the self-cherishing mind or self-cherishing attitude. That is to say, even the arhats who have eliminated from their mind self-grasping, which is the main impediment to achieve liberation, once they've eliminated that through their mind by realizing emptiness, you would think they might go for enlightenment. But although some can change their plan, most of them, because they've worked so hard to develop renunciation to achieve arhatship, and because they still have the smell of the self-grasping, the imprint of it, called self-cherishing, they don't really conscience working for enlightenment, even if it might be explained to them as an option. They just want to get out of here. So even the arhats, the Hinayana arhats, have self-cherishing, but they don't have self-grasping. It's said in some texts that the arhats take their main object of to be eliminated is the self-grasping, whereas the bodhisattvas take at the beginning their main object of abandonment is the self-cherishing. They want to transform that into a mind which cherishes others more than oneself. And as a result of that, they can develop bodhicitta. Just overcoming self-cherishing doesn't mean that you have bodhicitta. It's an obstacle to developing bodhicitta. So we talked about this last time. In one sense, the self-cherishing is like a derivative of the self-grasping. Self-grasping is more fundamental. Self-cherishing is like the imprint of that. So in some interpretations, this is talking about the self-cherishing is like a chronic disease. And in Asian medicine, even in Tibetan Buddhist medicine, some chronic diseases are caused by spirits, or in this case, this is Donchen, or what is this, a great demon, monstrous demon. So it's like the self-grasping is like the real fundamental cause, and its derivative, manifestation is the self-grasp, is the self-cherishing. So this verse is talking about, mainly talking about the disadvantages of self-cherishing, but indirectly talking about our ultimate goal is to get rid of self-grasping eventually, like in the last verse, Dagsen Dunchen Jombar Jingilab, grant me blessings to destroy the monstrous demon of self-grasping. So that verse, sometimes the Geshes debate about that. Why is it mentioning self-grasping and self-cherishing? So that's one interpretation of that. I remember, I think I might have mentioned you, I did a retreat once in Holland, in Amsterdam, at a Benedictine monastery. There was the abbot of the monastery was a friend of the Buddhist center in town. He worked at a He worked at as the spiritual guide of some big Dutch housing, old-fashioned housing development, sort of like walled enclave with many, many condominiums in it. Very nice, not like Chinese, like in China or big impersonal thing. He was kind of the spiritual guide. He was the abbot of this Benedictine monastery in another part, and I visited him once. I think I told you he had a statue that had been given to him by Bede Griffiths, this famous Christian missionary to India. I used to call him Bede Griffiths, like B-E-D-E, but I think it's pronounced Bede. He was a Christian missionary who took on the trappings of Hinduism in order to, and Buddhism, in order to further his, becoming friendly with the Indians. And he'd given this abbot of the monastery a statue of Christ sitting like Buddha, in the meditation posture. And when I did retreat at his monastery for several months, and one of the main things was these verses, tracing back all of the suffering that we are experiencing now, all the things that we don't like, bad dreams, criticism, losing, not achieving our goals, not finding what we want. All of them have arisen because of creating negative karma. So you trace back. That negative karma, the main motivating factor for it, immediate factor, was self-cherishing, wanting ourself, wanting ourself to be happy, cherishing ourself. Of course, the cause of that, if you go back, is the ignorance of self-grasping. But here when we're talking about developing bodhicitta, we're mainly talking about that factor after the self-grasping, the imprint of that, the self-cherishing thought. Maybe when you have your Thanksgiving dinner at grandma's place, maybe it's at, I don't know, it's your own place now if you've got kids, at the end, there's a bowl that you've made the potatoes in, the mashed potatoes or whatever, maybe baked potatoes or something. And when you clean it, you have to first take out with your hand, maybe the gross stuff, and then you get maybe a scrubber, and then you go down deeper and deeper. So even at the end, there may be still some smell in there that you have to clean out. You have to eliminate that finally. That's like the imprint of that. Or another example that's given often, talking about the self-cherishing. If you were to put in a little container some garlic, I can't remember, I have some jars that had some spice in them, and even I cleaned them so much, there's still the odor of that, it's sort of embedded in there. That's kind of like the Ran Chenzen Gilo, the self-cherishing thought. So tracing back all of these sufferings that we have back to the self-cherishing thought, put the blame on that and develop then the sort of intention to destroy that. It's almost like the spiritual analog of regular revenge. I hope I'm not offending anyone if I say someone like Donald Trump, who I heard today now is saying they have to replace Mitch McConnell, because he didn't, he didn't, kowtow to him enough. So this is a spiritual kind of revenge. You want to get rid of that self-cherishing thought. So that's one aspect of this process of equalizing and exchanging self and others. Equalizing, first of all, recognizing that we're all in this boat together, all in this ocean of cyclic existence together, and empathizing with them. And then once you're equal that way, to try to enhance, see the disadvantages of cherishing yourself, and the advantages of cherishing others. So the next verse is, I think I might have just read it or just alluded to it, I'm not sure. All right. Manam chezun de la kope lo, tai yonden jungwe gortong ne, droa didak dagi, dralang kyang, sukle chepa simpa jingilo. So this, when I did retreat a couple of years ago, this was one of my most moving verses of reciting the Lama Chopa every day. If you read the Jataka tales, you've heard of the Jataka tales, right? Anyone not heard? I can't see everyone's. Oh, yeah, okay. So Jataka means life stories, I guess you could say. I can't see everyone's face there. Okay. Anyway, there are incidents that are found in the Pali Canon, also the Hinayana scriptures, and in the Mahayana of various incidents where the Buddha explained about his previous lives. You know, at that, you know, sometimes it arose because some question someone asked, why did this situation arise? Or, you know, how did that happen? Buddha would say, so many eons ago in a universe called this or that, I was a prince and Devadatta was this person, and my present father was this person, and so forth. It involved different people and different stories, but they would be stories while he was a bodhisattva, how he practiced the perfections, generosity and ethics, morality, and patience, and so forth, always with the aim of achieving highest enlightenment for the sake of others. So he always cherished others' welfare more than his own. Even if he had to give up his life, he had to give his body, he had to accept abuse and what is it called when you're forced to leave some country? Exile. Even he was exiled many times, abused in many ways. Even when he was born in the animal realm and he gave his life for others, he always did so with that aim. So this verse is very much reminiscent of that for me. So manam means mothers in the first verse here. Chezung is sort of like a participle or past participle, I guess, of chezin, cherishing. Cherishing mothers. De la gope lo. Lo means a mind which cherishes others and would set them in bliss. De la go. Kuba means to set them in. The mind, well, so this the translation here, the mind that cherishes mothers and I would say would place them in bliss rather than places them in bliss, because even if you have bodhicitta now, you don't have the ability to place them in bliss right now. So it's kind of like aspirational. The mind of bodhicitta is a mind that out of compassion for sentient beings, we want to achieve enlightenment because from that status, we can remove them from suffering and place them into the state of eternal happiness, of liberation or enlightenment. So the mind that cherishes mothers and would place them in bliss is the gateway or the door leading to infinite qualities. Tai yonden, infinite qualities. Jungwei gortongne, seeing it as a door or entryway, or gateway, that's sort of reminiscent of the language when we in the philosophical texts that give the definition of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is a special Mahayana primary mind, mental consciousness, which serves as the gateway to enter the bodhicitta and enter the bodhisattva path. So I kind of think sometimes the words that are chosen in these verses are reminiscent of more more, philosophical language in other cases. So the mind that cherishes mothers, that's current. You can cherish mothers, and mothers means, doesn't mean only mothers. It would also include Philip and George and any other guys and myself. What it means is mother sentient beings, right? Having recognized previously and developed a sense of wanting to repay the kindness of all living beings who have been in infinite, a multitude of times our mother, and cherished us with kindness again and again. So the mind that cherishes them and would set them in bliss is the doorway for the arisal of infinite qualities. So what does that mean? If you take others' welfare more important than your own, you subdue your self-cherishing thought, which is the main cause of creating negative karma, right? Cheating and stealing and saying bad things, working instead for the welfare of others, cherishing others with the aim of setting them in bliss, allows you to practice the bodhisattva perfections. And that motivation itself, wanting to set them in bliss, like the bodhisattva in the Jataka tales, we call the Buddha's previous lives, in parentheses, the bodhisattva. When he was not yet enlightened, he was still on the bodhisattva path, doing all of these amazing things, even giving up his kingdom, pleasures, all with the aim of cherishing others' happiness more than his own. So by practicing, but with that kind of mind that cherishes others more than oneself, one creates virtuous karma, which acts as the foundation to create all of the virtuous qualities that we want. Because of that, you can accumulate the merit needed to actualize single-pointed concentration, shamatha, samadhi, various kinds of single-pointed concentration, samadhis. You are empowered or encouraged to give liberally and perfect the perfection of generosity. You are cherishing others, encourages you, impels you to observe your own karma, abstain from negative karma, and create a multitude of virtuous karmas. So you can complete the perfection of ethics or morality, the second perfection. We talk about the 6 perfections. Patience, one of the Jataka tales that many of you have probably heard is when the Bodhisattva was called, I can't remember what he was called. I guess he was just called Patience or something Patience, the patient sage or something like that. He was meditating in the forest and sitting very, brilliantly and calmly meditating on patience. And a king had come nearby with his haram, his entourage of girlfriends, wives or whatever. And the king had sort of nodded off, maybe having had some drink and so forth in the afternoon. And his haram had gone off into the forest looking around, and they seen this beautiful, handsome sage meditating, radiating light. And they became enamored, and they were sitting there like, wide-eyed. And the king, when he awoke and didn't find them, asked his attendants to find them, and he sought. And he was angered by this, that they were paying attention to the sage, jealous, right? So he, out of anger, many things took place in the conversation, but he tried to dissuade his haram from revering this being, Siddhartha, not Siddhartha, the previous lifetime, the Bodhisattva that became the Buddha. He said, if you're practicing patience, what do you think about this? And he cut off his ear, and he cut off another ear, and he cut off his, I'm not sure the sequence, cut off his nose, and always the Bodhisattva remained in, patient contemplation, didn't react with anger or distress or anything. Finally killed him, but he remained in that concentration on patience because of his desire to achieve enlightenment for the sake of others, because he cherished others more than himself. So this is a good time if you have, there's other places in the Lama Chopa Puja, especially in the 7 limbs, when you meditate on rejoicing. One of the 7 limbs is rejoicing in the virtues of others. I often would read the Jataka tales at that point, and also here, thinking of the activities of the bodhisattvas, not just the bodhisattva who became Shakyamuni Buddha, but all the bodhisattvas who cherish others more than themselves, and thereby have a doorway into the entry of infinite qualities. All infinite qualities also means the end qualities of Buddhahood. Taya Yondan, the Buddha's infinite qualities. Cherishing others is like the doorway to getting there. If you don't cherish others, there's no way to get inside that gateway. Okay. The mind that cherishes others and would place them in bliss is the gateway leading to infinite qualities. Seeing this, or having seen that the mind that cherishes others and place them in bliss is the gateway leading to infinite qualities, I seek your blessings, or please bless me to cherish these transmigrators. Droa didak. Droa means migrators. So migrators doesn't mean like coming in from the Mexican border or something like that. We are all migrators in cyclic existence. We are goers. We are migrating from one rebirth to another, one realm to another, over and over again. We're continual migrants. Droa didak. Didak is plural of di. Di means this. Didak means these migrators. Dagi dra lang kyang, even if they were to arise, lang, as enemies, as my enemies. Dagi means my, dra means as enemies. So generally, if you're in a situation where people are more or less harmonious, you still cherish yourself, but certainly when people abuse you or rise as some kind of enemy in your mind, they think, I'm going to get them or something. Even if they were to arise as enemies, bless me to be able to cherish them more than life itself. Sokle chepa simpa jingilob. Here, the English translation says more than my life. The word my doesn't occur in the Tibetan, but you can kind of infer that, more than life. So the examples, when confronted with someone who, if we were to have this kind of mind, confronted with someone who says, either you kill these people or I'm going to kill you, the person who has this state of mind that cherishes others and would, more than oneself, and would set them in bliss, would cherish the others more than oneself. One wouldn't kill other people under the threat of being killed oneself. Maybe right now, I don't know. If you're put in that situation, that might be difficult, huh? Or if a lion, this is a big dilemma. If a lion is about to pounce on you and kill you, theoretically, you know, and you have a gun, do you shoot the lion? Well, I'll leave that up to you right now. But this is talking about situations like that. The mind, seeing that the mind that cherishes mothers, all our mothers, and would place them in bliss is the gateway giving rise to infinite qualities. I seek blessings, please bless me to cherish these migrators more than life, even should they rise up as my enemies. Make sense? Who has question? I can't see all if anyone's handing there. Can the moderator see everyone, or do you have to take off that page? There we go. Anyone have question? Does it make sense? So these two verses, the last verse was seeing the defects of self-cherishing, this chronic disease of self-cherishing. As I cough, chronic disease is one that's always there. You have some palliatives that help to alleviate, but the root cause is still there all the time. This chronic disease of self-cherishing is seeing that it is the cause that gives rise to all undesired suffering, everything that we don't want. We should put the blame on it. And yeah, in fact, it's very, very skillful. One of the causes of giving rise to delusions is by thinking that the cause of my suffering is out there. You know, it's someone else's fault. It's the government or Democrats or Republicans, or, you know, my friends have messed me over or something. When you have that kind of thought that the root cause is out there, that someone else is the cause of your suffering, that's very easy. It's one of the contributing causes to generating anger. So if instead, when you're confronted with situations like that, when your mind is thinking, you know, I'm getting messed over, revert to your Buddhist wisdom and compassion that thinks the root cause of this is my own karma. There's no way that I could experience this suffering unless I'd created the karma for it in the past. That karma was created under the influence of self-cherishing. So that's the cause. Rather than looking outside, looking inside. I might have mentioned when I was first at Kopan in 1974, there were the students that had been there previous courses had little quotations from Lama Yeshe up on the wall. You know, they would write, and one of them that Lama always would say to people was, first check inside, then check outside. So that has many meanings, but one of the meanings here is before you check outside what's the cause of your suffering, check inside. There may be some cooperative causes outside, of course. If the mosquitoes or poisonous snakes are coming in, you have to eventually clear, you know, put in screening and fill in the holes in the wall where the snakes are crawling in. But the fundamental cause of that is inside one's own mind, and the previous your own previous continuum, mental continuum, when you created negative karma, which is now ripening. It's not enough that you have negative karma in your mind stream. It has to be ripened And of course, there are other conditions outside that can cause it to ripen. But if you don't have those negative seeds in your mind, or if you can provide temporal antidotes to those seeds ripening, you're not going to suffer. So, when you have problems with, placing blame with others, instead of blaming others, blame your self-cherishing thought and think, that's the thing I've got to get rid of because it's harmed me in the past. I've created this negative karma that's kept me in cyclic existence since beginningless time. It's harming me now because the self-cherishing thought prevents me from feeling a little bit of satisfaction now with what we do have. It causes me to get jealous at the present time, and so forth. And unless I get rid of it, it will harm me again in the future, past, present, future. Long-time chronic disease. So place the blame on that and develop a mind, maybe you can say vindictive, like Shantideva says in the Dalai Lama says, if there's any cause to be angry at something or vindictive for something, it's toward your own self-cherishing and self-grasping. That's the real enemy. Okay? Make sense? Is it Tal or Tai? Abadi.
Tal, with an L.
I just had eye examination today. I've gone beyond macular degeneration. There's some other fault, so it's hard to read these things even with glasses. What do you think? Does that make sense? Place the blame on your self-cherishing thought?
Yes, it makes sense. The only question I have is that when the arhat has uprooted the self-grasping, if the self-grasping is really more fundamental, then how can there be imprints of self-cherishing? I guess that's the one thing I don't understand.
Yeah. So I guess I didn't make the example clear enough. When you're taking the potatoes out of the pan or the garlic out of the jar, you get rid of all the garlic. That's like the self-grasping. That's the cause of the smell in the jar, right? But even you've taken out the gross garlic, there's still some imprint of it sort of that has seeped into the wood or the glass or the plastic of the container, the porcelain or whatever. That is more, in some ways, that's more difficult to extricate. So the arhats still have that smell, that imprint of self-grasping. It doesn't manifest as self-grasping. It manifests as an interest in one's own welfare. So I want to get out of samsara. Given the opportunity of staying around and working for others doesn't seem so appealing if that self-cherishing is present. That imprint of the self-grasping. Does that help at all, or do you still have doubt?
No, it does help. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the teachings. Thank you.
Okay. So think about that. Okay. So after that, next verse.
I have a quick question.
Oh, yes, please.
If
Yeah.
I may, thanks. So I'm getting stuck with the self-cherishing and
Cynthia,
cherishing.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So the word cherishing, whether it's self-cherishing or cherishing others, or is that might just be a limitation of the English language of translation, but self-attachment, attachment to others, in a way, well, isn't that attachment?
Isn't that cherishing others?
Either way, it's attachment.
Yeah, you might think so. So here, the Tibetan word, and maybe Paul knows the Sanskrit, Rang Chen Zin Gilo. Che means dear, Zin means holding. So it means holding others, holding oneself as dear or holding others as dear. Self-cherishing, cherishing others, holding them dear. Like if you've got you know, some very precious thing. A couple of years ago, someone gave me an iPhone when I went to Singapore, and I was very protective of it all the time. I had it in case and everything. And at one dinner, someone asked me to look at it, and they dropped it immediately on the ground. And sort of like I was holding that as dear. I was cherishing that. So here, cherishing others as opposed to cherishing oneself, there's a certain flavor of that in what people think of as heroic, or the archetypal hero or mother or father who would do things for their children or their family or their country. There's a certain element of that, but usually that is based on attachment. Here, just in the name self-cherishing and cherishing in others, it doesn't indicate a lack of attachment, but that's the ideal, to be working for others, you know, to hold others as a final aim, final goal of enlightenment and pure happiness, uncontaminated happiness, as more important than yourself, more important than your own. So you could call that, you could say that when you give things to the kids, your nieces and nephews, or your children, or your friends, or something, you could say that that is, and even as you say, for instance, if you have to dive into your bank account to do that, so you're not cherishing yourself, you're cherishing others. Maybe there's a certain element of that, but usually what one is doing in cases like that is based on some form of self-gratification, that others will be pleased with you, that they'll be friends with you, you know, or others will consider you noble. Here, the bodhisattva who's cherishing others, like in the Jataka tales, the Buddha the bodhisattva who became Buddha was not expecting anything in return. So that kind of cherishing of others, maybe remaining in the background, you know, not tooting your horn. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Cynthia?
thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. So Manam Shezundele Kubira. So there was one quotation in the text here by Muntu Dharmabhadra with the relationship to this. It said, the protector Shantideva, or the Lord Shantideva, you know who Shantideva is, said, Semchen Namdang Gyawale Sange Chujup Dawala Gyawa Gupa Chete Shindu Semchen La Min Chi Sul. So essentially means we gain the qualities of a Buddhahood, from both sentient beings and the conquerors alike. So why do I not respect sentient beings in the same way that I respect the conquerors? The conquerors is another conqueror. Jina is one of the epithets of the Buddhas, right? So, you know, even generally when we do Guru Puja, you know, you did last week, some of you, and you make all these offerings, and sometimes people will say, quite rightly, why are you spending so much money on this? As hypothetical Buddhists, you could be giving to the food kitchen. There are people that are starving, and you know, and so forth. So Shantideva is saying just that. He's saying, because we depend, the qualities of Buddhahood depend upon, you know, working for the welfare of others. So it depends on others, and depends on the conquerors who give the teachings and provide blessings and inspiration and so forth. Of course, in the Lamrim teachings, it says in general, well, you know, if you were to give, you know, in the Lamrim teachings, when it talks about guru devotion, it says it's more meritorious to give food to your guru's dogs, your guru's entourage, than it is to give to the other monks. You know, this is like a real extreme case. This is talking about some particular situation where you're talking about the power of the object. You know, other things the same, giving, making offerings to sentient beings and making offerings to the Buddha, because of the power of the object, the omniscient mind, making offerings to the Buddha, just from the side of the object is more powerful, so you accumulate more merit. But that's not based on cherishing. If you actually respect sentient beings and you cherish them, giving even what do they say? Giving a grain of what do you give to ants? Sugar, right? You don't give salt. Giving a grain of sugar to an ant is perhaps more meritorious than making all of these offerings at Guru Puja, you know, that you're doing maybe so other people see that you're doing it and so forth. So sentient beings, so Shantideva says, so why don't we respect sentient beings in the same way that we respect the conquerors? A very, very famous quotation. So that's something you have to investigate. You know, generally, those who are in great need, if you were to give an offering to just someone on the street that doesn't need it, you say, you know, someone's walking down the street, say, oh, here's a $50 bill, or you were to give it to someone who's in great need, there's more merit, virtuous karma created in consciously giving it to someone who's in need. There are various objects, you know, someone who's been kind to you, like your parents, you create more virtuous karma. They're heavier objects of karma. So this is something, an investigation that you can do it as you read about the Lamrim. But here, this is, in this context, we're talking about the importance of cherishing others and setting them in bliss. That means wanting them to have the highest goal. Okay. So then, it's Manam Chizun. So then, the next verse, Dorna Chipa Rangdong Gonadang. Oh. What does it say? Rangni Jipa. Oh, this, well, is that right, Paul? It should be Chipa, right? Phonetically, not Jipa. Ordinary beings.
Yeah.
Dorna. Anyway, there it looks like Jipa. I don't know what that means. Dorna Chipa Rangdong Konadang. Tubang Shendong Bashik Sebayi. Kyondang Yonden Yewa Tokbelo. Dakshin Yamje Nupa Jingilo. So Chipa means childish. So in the sutras, commentaries afterwards also, ordinary beings are called childish. You know, when we want to disparage someone, we say, oh, don't be so childish, right? So here, beings that are still under the influence of self-cherishing and self-grasping are like childish beings. Dorna means in short, or in brief. You're translated and says, in brief, infantile beings labor only for their own ends. So that's I think John Landau's poetic way of putting it. Dorna means in brief, in short. So it in the commentary here by Multu Dharmabhadra, he gives some, you know, typical kind of explanation of that. It says Dorna, Mangpo Mutshige. That means what need is there to say a lot? So you can, you know, you can just say it very briefly. You know, you don't have to say a lot. Ordinary beings work only for their own aim, their own aims. Tu Buang is, in the next line, is a, what is he translated here? While the able ones. Tu Buang means Munindra, so it's it means the Lord of able ones, or the Lord of Munis, one of the epithets of the Buddha. Tu Buang Shendong, Shen means others, Don means aims, Bashik, only, exclusively, Sepai. They work only for the welfare of others. You don't have to say a lot. Just look at this. So ordinary people, ordinary beings work only for their own ends. The Buddhas work exclusively for the welfare of others. You don't need to say a lot. You could just look at that. Where ordinary beings who work only for their own ends end up in the infinity of cyclic existence. Those beings who became the Buddha and began to work for the welfare of others exclusively become Buddhas. There's no need to say a lot. Just that alone gives you the idea. With the mind understanding the distinctions between the faults of one, Kyondang, Yonden, and the qualities or advantages of the other, that is, the faults of working only for oneself and the advantages of working for the welfare of others. So this is sort of a synopsis of the last two verses. The defects of self-cherishing thought and the benefits of cherishing others, where it says, cherishing mothers with a mind that cherishes others and would set them in bliss is the doorway of infinite qualities. Seeing this, grant me blessings to cherish migrators, even if they were to rise up as my enemy. Cherish them, cherish more than my life, more than life itself. So those two verses, we're talking about the defects of self-cherishing, the advantages of cherishing others. Now, putting the two together, going back and forth. Well, okay, I've thought about defects of self-cherishing and the advantages of cherishing others. Now, putting them in your mind together, almost like in a syllogism, you have to put all of the elements together in a logical reasoning. In brief, in short, the childish, infantile beings work only for their own ends or their own welfare, while the Munindras, the kings, the Lord of Munis, that's like the Buddhas, work only or solely for the welfare of others, with a mind understanding the distinction between the failings of one, that is working, the disadvantages of working for yourself, and the advantages of working for others. Grant me blessings to enable me to equalize and exchange myself with others. So it's a iterative process. You think of the defects of self-cherishing. All of the suffering that we're experiencing now can be traced back to karma, which was created out of self-cherishing thought. Self-cherishing thought is the main impetus toward the 8 worldly dharmas. You've heard of the 8 worldly dharmas, right? So 8 worldly dharmas are, wanting to have, pleasure of the senses, to be free of what's unpleasant, to have possessions, to be free of not having possessions, these different things, to be loved and respected and so forth. Those are the things that ordinary beings, childish beings like ourselves, think of what holds us up. Dharma. Dharma means that which holds you up from suffering. So we think, having possessions and fame and love and, pleasurable feelings, this is what this is what life is about, right? This is the gusto that we're looking for. Whereas an inner being, a Buddhist, would use this kind of logic, putting together, seeing the disadvantages of cherishing oneself, and then counterpoising that with the advantages of cherishing others, sort of like you get to the point when you start to see both of them as compatible with one another, and so you would eschew, you would give up cherishing yourself, put that energy toward cherishing others. In brief, the infantile, the childish, work only for their own welfare. It's so poetic here, their own ends, okay? While the able ones, the Munindras, that means the Buddhas, work solely for the welfare of others. The word welfare and ends are the same word in Tibetan, don, or in Sanskrit, artha, is the aim. So with a sort of a wisdom, it says with a mind, with a wisdom that understands the fine distinctions between, what are the disadvantages of working for yourself and the advantages of working for others. Grant me blessings to equalize and exchange myself with others. So this enhances first of all, enhances the equalization that we talked about before. Equalizing self and others was the main reason, was giving, we're all the same in cyclic existence in not wanting even the slightest suffering, going out of our way to avoid even the slightest suffering. Even if some criticism is heard, we try to wiggle out of it, anything. And we're never satisfied because of the nature of contaminated happiness. Any of the happiness we have is changeable suffering. It never brings ultimate satisfaction. It never satiates us so that we don't need it again. In fact, having it, we want more, we want more respect, more money, more love, more sex, more drugs, more everything. So this is now the stage that you've analyzed them individually with the previous two verses, the defects of self-cherishing and the advantages of cherishing others, like the doorway to infinite qualities. Now putting those two thoughts in the mind at one time and requesting, opening your heart, your mind to the enlightened activity of the Buddhas, what we call blessing, to give you the possibility of making that realization that is equalizing and exchanging self with others. First equalizing, enhancing that which you've already started, and then to exchange self and others. In Shantideva's Bodhisattvacharya Vatara, in the chapter on concentration, that's where he talks about equalizing and exchanging self and others. You know that, right? Paul, you know that? So that Shantideva talks.
Yeah, chapter 8, I believe, sure. Chapter
8, Paul says. Okay. I don't have the memory any longer, remember which chapter. So you can go back there and see, especially in the commentaries on that. For instance, when you meet others, you're walking down the street, one activity Shantideva suggests in equalizing and exchanging self and others is to think, put yourself in the other person's, from their perspective, almost like you're that person and you're looking up at George walking down the street, says, oh, look at that guy, he's got good clothes, he's got money, he's healthy, he may have glaucoma, but he's better than me. Why doesn't he help me? So that you're thinking from that other person's point of view. And that can help, that's some of the kind of activities that can help to put into practice in everyday life exchanging self and others. So you can investigate that in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Okay? Any thoughts? Any questions? You can, the moderator can see when people put their hand up or something, or there's some little, I saw on Cynthia's picture before, there was like a hand up there. Oh, there's one, Barbara.
Is this what Tonglen?
Okay, so this is coming up to Tonglen. So oftentimes, because Tonglen in the actual practice tradition of training of the mind was revered to such a degree that oftentimes when people give a lecture on Tonglen, they don't talk about all the cooperative causes, the sequence of events that you need to have as building blocks to develop Tonglen. Tongwa means giving. Lenpa means taking or accepting. So the idea is to imagine taking on the suffering of others. Usually you start with taking, because if you try, when people are oppressed with suffering, if you try to give them something, they're just too frantic. You have to start taking away their suffering, and then imagine giving them your body in whatever form it might be, as a friend, as a nurse, as a teacher, as food, or Shantideva says, as pajamas, whatever people need, as a boat to cross over. So that's coming in a couple of verses. The first intimation of that has 5 lines. Usually all of these verses have 4 lines. That verse, which comes after the next verse, so 2 verses from now, originally was written with 4 lines. And after the first Panchen Lama, subsequently called the 4th Panchen Lama, after he wrote that, one of his disciples, a Rinpoche, reincarnated Lama, said, "Oh, please, would it be permissible if we added 1 more line, because this is such an important concept?" So they added an extra line. The Panchen Lama agreed, he said this is okay. So nowadays we stop at that verse and we recite it 3 times. You know the one? Yeah. Dana Jason Lama Tukche Chen. So that originally just had the last 4 lines, but they added the first line, therefore, O compassionate Guru. And then there's 4 lines. So that's beginning to talk about Tonglen, but the actual verse about Tonglen even has comes after some of the Lojong verses, but this is essentially getting toward that subject, okay? So this is first analyzing the defects of cherishing oneself, analyzing the benefits of cherishing others, and then putting them together, like here, Dorna in brief. There's, without analysis, you can, like even a dull-minded person can see ordinary beings that work for their own welfare end up in I want to say some bad word, excrement, and the Buddhas who work only for others end up with celestial qualities, universal qualities. So there's no need to say a lot. So therefore, grant me blessings to be able to equalize and exchange myself with others. So then I'll just introduce the next verse because we're almost at the end. What did I say? Shiba. So this is the actual equalizing and exchanging self with others. So equalizing and exchanging is not Tonglen. And in the next verse, 95, where it says Tonglen meditation, that's not actually Tonglen. I don't know where they got that outline from. Sometimes people call it Tonglen. But anyway, this verse 94, Rangni Chezen Gupa Kungigo. Rangni Chezen means self-cherishing, cherishing oneself. Gupa means failings, what does it say? Loss, everything that's bad. Kun means all, Gigo means is the door of. So cherishing oneself, so the previous one was like in brief, without a lot of analysis, just thinking that the ordinary beings that work for their own welfare end up in disaster, and the Buddhas who work only for others end up with omniscience. So there's no need to say a lot. Here, now it's going into detail. Once you've got that, putting again, the two ideas juxtaposed. Cherishing oneself is the doorway, entryway to all disaster, you could say, gupa. Manam chezin yonin kungishir. Cherishing mothers, that means others, one's own mothers, is the foundation of all qualities. Saying, in other words, the previous two things, now putting them in juxtaposition. De cheer, sort of like syllogistic language. Therefore, dakshen jewe neljor la, with respect to the yoga of exchanging self and others, that doesn't mean, again, taking on their identity or anything like that. It means exchanging your attitude of cherishing others more than cherishing oneself. Nyamlen ningpo chepar jingilob, grant me blessings to take that yoga of exchanging self and others as the heart of my practice. How does it say here? I seek your blessings to make my heart practice. Well, this is as the heart of practice. So there are different kinds of situations. I think we even had another verse earlier where it says, please grant me blessings to take this as the heart of my practice. You might think that's contradictory, saying this is the heart of the practice, now this is the heart of the practice. At different times, there may be certain practices that become the essential element that you put your emphasis on. So when you're trying to develop bodhicitta, this is the exchanging of self and others you want to try to take as your the essence of your practice, the main practice. Okay, cherishing oneself is the doorway of all loss, sharing myself, disaster, while cherishing my mothers, doesn't say my, cherishing mothers is the foundation of all qualities. Hence, I seek your blessings to make my heart practice the yoga of exchanging self for others, exchanging myself for others. So as yet, this is not Tonglen. Tonglen is not bodhicitta. Bodhicitta comes after Tonglen. They are cooperative causes. Okay, so because 8:30, this is the official ending time, right? Did I get it right? So anyone have a question about the class or something from some other context? This is a chance before we finish. Tom, where are you? Tom G. You look Dutch. Are you in Holland? Where are you?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Ah, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Not Los Angeles, Los Angeles. Anyone? Okay, you can save for next week if you have some. So we've talked, again, we've reiterated this difference that someone mentioned last time. It became clear to them, the difference between self-cherishing and self-grasping. We talked about the need to eliminate self-cherishing and transform it into the mind that, the mind that what we hold dear is others' welfare more than our own. So we call that cherishing others or holding others as dear. It doesn't mean, like, oh dear, oh, they're so sweet or something like that, but cherishing them from the point of view of wanting them to achieve the highest goal. So we're working toward that. These are the quintessential Mahayana mind training concepts. Like in the 7-point training of the mind, it says, put all blames on one. What do you suppose that means? Sheila, from today's class, if I said there's this teaching on this subject, sort of a little verses, put all blames on one. Where do you put the blames?
Self-cherishing.
What?
Self-cherishing.
Yeah, I hear some buzzing in the background. Okay, yeah, that's right. That's so. And then the other verse that corresponds to that is, put all blames on one. Remember the kindness of all, so that leads to cherishing others. Okay. Okay. So let's do a brief dedication. Remember, beginning, middle, and end. Motivation. You had good concentration in the middle. I could see you were all there. Now dedication. Conventional dedication. Recognizing that we've created some virtuous karma the last hour and a half. Because even if our mind wandered by the force of our motivation at the beginning, that kind of colors the whole tenure of the action of listening to the class. But you may have had some insights, some good feelings, created some virtuous karma. Now, understanding that without dedicating them, they can be exhausted in some samsaric happiness in the future, alone, because of, maybe we have wealth and it's gone in that lifetime, or we're born attractive, but it enhances our ego and our pride and so forth. So whatever way this ripens, may it become the cause of my spiritual evolution in the Buddhist path, developing renunciation, bodhicitta, the wisdom that realizes emptiness, practice of the bodhisattva perfections, up to and including enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So making a firm wish that these merits ripen in that way, leading to our eventual enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings. That's what's called dedication. So 3 elements: the merits that we're dedicating, the goal dedicating to, and the action of dedication. Due to these merits, may I quickly become an enlightened being, enlightened Buddha, and as a result of that, lead every sentient being without exception into that very same state. Thank you very much. So have a good weekend. Dundrup, you were listening also to tenets, right? Or you're not in, oh yeah, so you'll see you. I don't know if anyone else is listening. So see you next week. I think next week have class, right? 2 weeks again, okay. Break next week. What's next week? Another Guru Puja?
I don't know.
Okay, not Earth Day, that's all right. Okay, take care.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.